More than 2 decades after the tragic death of Princess Diana, the world continues to reflect on the impact her absence left, not only on the British monarchy, but above all on her 2 sons, Prince William and Prince Harry. Diana's death was not just a traumatic event, it was an open wound that marked the growth of 2 children who were forced to become adults in front of the world's cameras. William, the eldest son, then 15, quickly adopted a restrained demeanor, as expected of a future king. But over time, that contained pain became an emotional burden that he carried silently for years. In contrast, the more impulsive Harry, only 12 at the time, found an escape in emotional silence, denying what had happened as a form of protection. One of the most heartbreaking moments William recently shared was the memory of his last conversation with Diana. It was a phone call that he and Harry answered in a hurry, eager to get back to playing. No one could have imagined that it would be their last contact with their mother. William confessed that, for years, that moment haunted him with guilt. The regret of not having spent more time with her was one of the ghosts he had to face in his healing process. For Harry, the grief was more diffuse, more intangible. He only cried once, on the day of the funeral, as he walked behind his mother's coffin through the streets of London. For years, he avoided talking about it, as if ignoring it could make it go away. It wasn't until his late 20s, when faced with deep emotional crises, that he sought professional help. Therapy was, for him, the key to unlocking a pain that had frozen him inside. On August 31, 1997, Diana, along with her partner Dodi Al Fayed, left the Ritz Hotel in Paris through a back exit, trying to avoid the paparazzi. The Mercedes in which they were traveling, driven by Henri Paul, collided brutally in the Pont de l'Alma tunnel. Diana, who was not wearing a seatbelt, suffered fatal internal injuries. Dodi and the driver were killed instantly. Diana died shortly afterwards in the hospital. The entire world was stunned, not only by the death of one of the most admired women on the planet, but also by the brutal manner in which it occurred. The image of photographers taking pictures instead of helping fueled global anger and grief. Investigations pointed to a lethal combination: speed, media pressure, and a drunk driver. However, over time, doubts arose. Videos of Henri Paul walking normally shortly before the accident raised suspicions about the toxicology reports. The presence of an unidentified white Fiat Uno and a letter written by Diana herself, warning that she feared for her life, added fuel to the conspiracy theories. The theory that Diana may have been the victim of a deliberate attack is not new. The letter to her butler, in which she expressed fear that her car's brakes had been tampered with, was a macabre prediction. Added to that, Mohammed Al Fayed's claims about Diana's alleged pregnancy and an imminent wedding to his son, Dodi, raised an even more explosive narrative. Did that union pose a threat to the royal status quo? Although official investigations ruled out any conspiracy, the fact that key details remain unclear, such as the whereabouts of the white Fiat, the loss of film footage from the tunnel, and delays in medical attention, keeps skepticism alive. On the day of Diana's funeral, millions watched in silence as her 2 sons, aged just 15 and 12, walked behind her coffin. It was an image that was etched into the collective memory. While many saw it as a gesture of strength and honor, others considered it an unacceptable emotional burden for such young children. Years later, Harry revealed that he was forced to do so, that he had no choice, and that it was one of the most traumatic moments of his life. The decision to expose the princes at their most vulnerable moment reflects the historical tension between royal protocol and human sensitivity. Diana defied royal norms in many ways, but especially in her role as a mother. She didn't want her children to grow up in a bubble. She took them to McDonald's, amusement parks, hospitals, and shelters for people with HIV. She wanted them to see the world as it was, not just from the balcony of Buckingham Palace. She taught them to embrace emotion, to look people in the eye, to connect with those who were suffering. For William and Harry, those experiences forged a moral compass that would guide them for the rest of their lives. Even today, William says his approach to fatherhood is deeply influenced by the values Diana instilled in him. For years, William fulfilled his role within the royal family with impeccable discipline. However, the weight of expectations took its toll. Over time, he understood that continuing to hide his pain not only distanced him from his own well-being, but also limited his ability to be a good father and a compassionate leader. Seeking professional help was a turning point. Since then, William has promoted mental health campaigns such as Heads Together, seeking to break the stigma of emotional silence. His approach is based on prevention, early intervention, and building support networks, both within and outside the monarchy. Harry's story is more disruptive. Unlike his brother, his process was longer and more public. After years of struggling in silence, Harry decided to break with the institution. His interviews revealed that he felt emotionally abandoned and that the royal structure did not offer tools for healing. His work with the Invictus Games, his support for veterans, and his Archewell Foundation, developed alongside Meghan Markle, are all focused on emotional health. Talking about his anxiety, his panic attacks, and his unresolved grief made him a relatable figure for millions of people. Harry not only sought healing, but also challenged the system that, according to him, contributed to his mother's suffering and his own. Both brothers decided, each in their own way, to break with the culture of emotional repression. The monarchy, historically associated with the phrase, "keep your lip in," is being challenged by its own central figures. By sharing their pain, William and Harry are rewriting what it means to be royal in the 21st century. This transformation has not been easy, nor has it been without tension. The estrangement between the brothers, coupled with the generational clash with King Charles III, reveals an institution in transition. Charles, always perceived as more emotionally distant, was also the victim of a strict upbringing. Some interpret his apparent coldness as a form of protection against duty. Others see it as an inability to adapt to a new emotional paradigm. Today, William and Harry are fathers, and what they inherited from Diana, beyond the royal lineage, is a commitment to conscious emotionality. William has said that he wants to raise his children in an environment where talking about feelings is not only possible, but natural. He wants to break the patterns that caused him suffering. He wants his children to see him not only as a prince, but as a human being. Harry has also taken on that role with intention. His desire to build a family away from protocol, centered on emotional honesty, is a reflection of what he experienced, what he lost, and what he decided not to repeat. Diana lives on not only in memory, but in the actions of her sons. Her legacy of compassion, closeness, and social justice is now the driving force behind campaigns, speeches, and parenting models. Who can measure the influence of a mother whose death awakened the world and broke the silence of an entire family? Diana was more than a princess. She was an emotional revolutionary within an institution anchored in the past. And thanks to her children, her legacy continues to touch hearts, heal wounds, and build a future where vulnerability is not a weakness, but a form of leadership.